I'm still Doug Lichtman, and in this video, I want to introduce trademark law. Now, the way I like to think about trademark law is emphasizing that the law is truly about communication. Think of how you experience trademarks in your day-to-day life. You go into a restaurant, you want a Coke. You could describe it. I'd like a brown, watery liquid that is carbonated, that has this amount of caffeine, that's typically bottled in Minnesota. You could describe it. But because of trademark law, you can do something so much easier. You can say, I'd like a Coke. And indeed, if the restaurant you're at doesn't serve Coke, some don't have a deal with that particular company, the person serving you can say, I'm so sorry, I don't have Coke. I do have a Pepsi. And again, they don't need to explain that to you and tell you I do have another drink that is also brown, that also has some carbonation, and so on. We use trademarks to communicate, to express to other people, to sellers, to friends, to express to folks, this is the product or service I want. We want to make clear which one. If there are a bunch in the marketplace that are similar, we use trademarks to communicate our preferences. And so I think the right first step is just to recognize that. Trademark law, it's about communication. Now, it's communication that encourages investments. These companies know that if they can get you to try their product or service and you like it, you'll now be able to ask for it by name. That gives them an incentive to invest in giving you a good experience, make a high quality beverage, give a good quality service, and your customers will now come back. And so by making communication easy, we kind of reinforce this wonderful incentive on the part of the sellers to invest in good products and services. This helps us. This sets up a wonderful dynamic where we get good products and services. We can communicate whether we had a good experience, we can repeat patronage, and all of a sudden we have this reinforcement going for the kinds of products and services we want at whatever price point we're willing to bear. And so we have communication, encouraging investment, helping consumers, and obviously then protecting producers. Trademarks are enforced, are developed, are cared for by the seller, but they're then feeding the trademark into this wonderful communication ecosystem. And so as we get started, I submit to you that the right framework here is to think about trademark law helping you and I communicate. We don't want some other beverage to come in the market called a kook, because that would get confusing. I'd ask for a Coke, and maybe the listener wouldn't know which beverage I meant. And maybe that would undermine the incentives of the Coca-Cola company to make the drink that I actually really wanted, and so on down the line. Trademark law is designed to help us communicate and get rid of confusion that we don't need. We want clean communication so that capitalism, commerce can work well. Trademark law is about communication. Now, that's really different from the things I've said in other videos. Copyright, patent, trade secret. In those areas of intellectual property, I get to tell you that the law is trying to encourage the creation of the protected item. Patent law is about encouraging the creation of inventions. Copyright law is about encouraging the creation of works of authorship. Trade secret law is about encouraging folks to invest in proprietary information that might help them gain advantage. The other areas of law really are trying to encourage the marquee thing they protect. That's not true here. I don't think it's right to say trademark law wants you to make more trademarks. No, not really. The reason we have trademark law is to promote communication, and trademarks help us do that, absolutely. But if you're playing that old kids game, like one of these things is not like the other, it's trademark law. Trademark law isn't trying to encourage the creation and dissemination of trademarks. Trademark law is trying to promote clean, efficient, non-confusing communication. And sure, we do it through trademarks, but our goal isn't to make a lot of trademarks in and of itself. And indeed, you'll see this right away as you think about trademark law. For instance, we don't just ask you to make trademarks and kind of hoard them. As you'll see as we're deeper in our conversation, we ask you to make trademarks and use them. And indeed, to get a trademark, you have to pretty quickly show that you're going to use it. Are you using it in commerce? Because that's what we're really trying to do. And so trademark law is different in a lot of important ways from the other areas of intellectual property. You'll make the move, you'll get the intuitions right though, if you think about communication. All right, let's do some basics in this video, just to get you warmed up on trademarks and trademark law, kind of the fundamentals. The first thing I want to say to you on that basis is, if you qualify, you're going to want to register your trademark at the federal level. Again, we'll learn more as we go, but trademark law plays on both the state and the federal level. There's a federal system, mainly under what we call the Lanham Act. There's this federal system where you can apply federally, get recognized federally, and that means you have rights in the entire country. You can, and people used to do this more and more, less so now because the federal system is so easy to work with. But you can, if you want to, be in the state system, sure thing. You can just develop rights quietly in Ohio that work in Ohio. You're allowed to do that. But first move me to you, if you can, go to the federal system. That way, as your business grows, as you start selling on the internet, you got it. You got the whole federal footprint. So we're going to be looking at both systems, state kind of common law systems on the one hand, federal on the other, but always pay attention to the federal rules and see if you can get in. Second basic thing I want to point out to you is you can register almost anything. Let's show you that in a couple ways. Here's a snippet of the federal law. Again, it's called the Lanham Act. I put the number down in the corner if you want to look it up. But let me show you the key move. Under federal law, when we define what is a trademark, look how generous and sweeping Congress was. The term trademark includes any word, name, symbol, device, or any combination thereof. Any, so long as it's used by a person, and a person could be a corporation, don't let that throw you, used by a person, or which a person has a bona fide intention to use in commerce, so either using it or you have a true intention to use it, to identify or distinguish his or her goods from those manufactured or sold by others, and to indicate the source, even if that source is unknown. And what do all those words mean? I want to point out first, trademark can be anything. Word, name, symbol, device. You'll see in a second, all sorts of cool things can serve this communication purpose. I can recognize you by your name. I can recognize you by some color. I can recognize you by a logo, by a cartoon character you use. I can recognize you by a sound, by a smell. Almost any of these things. If you're using it in commerce, either right now or you have a true bona fide intent to do so, you're using it or you're going to use it to identify and distinguish your goods, to distinguish them from someone else's, even if users don't know who I am. You might have known that Coca-Cola tends to be bottled in Minnesota, but even if you didn't, Coca-Cola is still identifying source. You don't know where, you might not know the corporate structure, but you know it's that company you got this product from before. And so federal law kind of says like anything that can serve this purpose, used in commerce and can identify the good or service so you know where it came from, you know which one it is. Any of those things are trademarks. And look at all the kinds of trademarks you know. Sounds. NBC has those 3 chimes. MGM, the lion roars. And we know when we hear those things, we know, oh, that's NBC. And again, even if you don't know it's NBC, you know it's that broadcast network that I've experienced in the before. I liked them when they had Seinfeld. Oh, and they had ER, I think, too. Weren't they great? You still have an association. Sounds, totally fine. That can be a trademark. Smells. Play-Doh. Registered the smell of Play-Doh. Now, I don't know what they were thinking. I hate the smell of Play-Doh. It's one of the only ways I feel like I'm a bad parent. I never let my children play with Play-Doh because I absolutely positively can't stand that smell. And it turns out they intentionally put it in there and they registered it as their trademark. If you smell this, you'll know it's Play-Doh, not some knockoff, it's Play-Doh. And of course, they can't give like a sample to the government, so they wrote it up. They described it as a scent of a sweet, slightly musky vanilla fragrance, with slight overtones of cherry combined with the smell of salted wheat-based dough, mixed with vomit as far as I could tell. I totally don't get it, but fine. Smells, sure, we recognize Play-Doh when we smell it. Colors. Pink for insulation. You might not know which company does it, but you know that one of the fancy companies uses pink. Orange for Home Depot. Brown for UPS. What can brown do for you, they ask these days. Tiffany has its particular shade of blue. Colors serving the purpose. When you see the Tiffany's box, even if it didn't say Tiffany upon it, you would know, oh, I know that company. That's really nice, really expensive. Jewelry. You could do it all. Look at Nike. They use a word, Nike, whatever that means. They use the swoosh, sometimes with the word, sometimes not. They have a slogan, just do it. These are all trademarks. These are all indications when you see just do it on the box, you know, I bet that shoe comes from that company that Michael Jordan did some stuff with way back when. Lots of things can serve a trademark. So how do you qualify? How do you get one of these things into the federal system? One way is if you have something fanciful. And when I say fanciful, what I mean is it's totally made up. It's not a word we've seen before. It's not some image we know. Totally made up. And if it's fanciful, like the word Kodak was when they started, no one knew what a Kodak was. If it's fanciful, we readily acknowledge the possibility that it's a trademark. Because you made it up. And so if you start using it in commerce, people will look at it and say, hey, what is that? That must be someone's trademark. Whose? Well, whoever this guy is. Right? It's a word, it's a picture, it's something that is so original, unique, fanciful, that easy. Welcome to my system. Kodak was like that. Exxon, another totally made up word. And these are really powerful because once these companies teach you their made up word, it sticks. We all know Exxon, we all know Kodak. And so when you enter the market with a fanciful word, you got to do some work to teach people how to say it, how to spell it, what it is. But from a trademark perspective, great. Those are wonderful marks. You can use those. We also readily welcome what we call arbitrary marks. And these are things that have meaning, but not in this context. Camels. Camels exist, it's an animal, lovely. But when someone decided to take the camel and use it to identify a cigarette, it's arbitrary. The camel has nothing to do with a cigarette. The cigarette has nothing to do with camels, it turns out, either. It's arbitrary. Or the Apple for Apple computer products. In some settings, Apple is a word with true meaning in context. We eat apples, for instance. But Apple for a phone? Arbitrary. And again, we welcome these things in. It's kind of costless to us. No one else needs to use the word camel if they want to sell you a cigarette. And so if this company wants to say camel with the word cigarette, fine. Not getting in anybody's way. No one else needs it. And it stands out. Like, why camel? That must be their trademark. And so arbitrary, fanciful, these are easy categories for us. Suggestive marks, a little bit harder, but the system still welcomes them with open arms. Suggestive marks, if you think about it, you can tell yourself a story as to why they chose it. Like Tide for a cleaning solution. Trying to get you to think about the ocean's tide, and it's so fresh air and fresh water, and you're at the beach, associated with cleaning. Or a copper tone. When you tan, you're looking more of a shade like copper. Fine. You can tell yourself a story. It suggests something. It doesn't actually say that thing. It suggests it. And again, the intuition for all of this, for fanciful, for arbitrary, for suggestive, is we're okay to recognize trademarks. Your competitors don't need these words. Your competitors can make a competing detergent and not call it Tide. So fine, if you want to use Tide, that's going to stand out. You can teach people that Tide is you. Fantastic. These ones we welcome readily. Where do we pump the brakes just a tiny bit? Other things. And when I say pump the brake, what I mean to say is for other categories we require what we call secondary meaning. In plain old English, show me that customers see that as a trademark and think of you. And let's do an example, it'll help. Descriptive marks is the big category in this bucket. These are marks that describe, and that means they use regular old words that your competitors might have used too. Rollerblade. If you think of what a rollerblade is, it's kind of like the blade on an ice skate, but it's made of wheels that roll. And so if you knock on the door at the trademark office and say, hey, I want rollerblade, they might say, look, that's not fanciful. That's not arbitrary like camel. It's not suggestive even. It's descriptive. This thing rolls. It's in the shape of a blade. And at that moment, what they'll say to you is, we will welcome that. But first, you have to show me secondary meaning. You have to show me through a survey or some powerful evidence that consumers in your market see rollerblade and they don't think they're describing it, shape, purpose, motion. They instead think, oh, that's telling me source. Do Holiday Inn. Again, hotels, you go to the hotel for the holiday. Inn is a word for a hotel. At the first moment that this company said, we're going to call ourselves Holiday Inn, it's descriptive. Those are words competitors might need. Those are words that consumers, when they see them, they might think we're just describing. And so again, secondary meaning. Show me that consumers in your market see that as a trademark. All brand, descriptive, you can get it. Show me secondary meaning. And indeed, you can put that together, my little slide I called the spectrum of marks, just repeating the information we did, but just showing you kind of it's a range. On one end, I have my fanciful and arbitrary marks. These are immediately distinctive. When someone says Camel cigarettes, they well, that's unique. I'm not confused in any way. That's one company. On the one end, really distinctive things, suggestive a little less so, descriptive way less so. And on the far end, I added the idea of a generic phrase. I gave you the example of carpet cleaners. That's not a trademark. If I say I'm looking for a carpet cleaner, I'm not looking for a particular one. This is the category. And again, on our intuition, those are words competitors need. In the market for carpet cleaners, they all need to tell you, I'm a carpet cleaner. And so that's the kind of word that we don't think can or should serve as a trademark. Now, I've been using the word trademark, and that's cheating just a little bit. Trademark is my stand-in for a bunch of things that fit this dynamic. And let me show you a few more of them. It's all kind of words, symbols, devices, pictures that can do some sort of identification to help communication in the marketplace. And mainly what we see them as are trademarks, but let's make sure we're perfectly honest legally. So not just trademarks, service marks. Sometimes what I'm offering you isn't a product. Trademark kind of go with products, with goods. Sometimes what I'm offering you is a service. I will do the following things for you. Amazon offers services. MasterCard offers services. And technically, we're supposed to call those service marks. I don't really care all that much because there's almost no difference in practice. Whether I call it a trademark or a service mark, the law follows exactly the same way. And indeed, a lot of lawyers just say mark to avoid this extra complexity. But just so we know, we have trademarks and service marks. Trademarks are for products and goods. Service marks are for services. There's also this thing called a certification mark. And this one is a little bit different. It's not telling you which entity made or sold you the product. A certification mark is telling you something about the product. I use the examples like certified Idaho potatoes. And if you see that on a bag of potatoes, you know that all those potatoes in there come from Idaho. Or USDA organic. If you see that on a product, you know the product meets these standards. Or Energy Star has a certification mark, right? When you see that on a product, you know it's meeting those standards. And so certification marks a little bit different from trademark and service marks. It signals that you met some criteria. And interestingly, if you're controlling a certification mark, you have to announce what those criteria are. And then anyone who meets them can apply and then use the certification mark. So it's not telling you one source. It's not really doing exactly what Coke and Pepsi do in my examples. Instead, it's communicating information about the product to you. Collective marks, another type of mark. This time, I'm just showing you're a member of my group. I'm not certifying anything about you. I'm just saying, hey, you're part of my team. I'm AAA for cars. If you're the American Automobile Association, if you're a member, great, you can put their logo on your stuff. Girl Scouts, not telling you anything about these folk, maybe telling you they sell some really good cookies. But the point of it is, it's membership. Collective marks. There, whoever controls the collective mark can decide whether or not they want you in. It's a members group. Either I let you in or I don't let you in. The Greek fraternity and sororities and campus, collective marks. I can choose who comes in and who doesn't, but then my members can identify themselves, in that case, with those particular Greek letters. More things. Trademark is my big category. As you shake it a little bit, there are other things that follow the same pattern but are slightly different. Trade dress is another just vocabulary word. I give two examples of trade dress. Product design is a type of trade dress. Think of the shape of the glass Coca-Cola bottle. It's not functional the way they have the glass kind of broken in kind of waves or ripples, and how you want to think of it. But it does help you identify, ooh, that's a Coke bottle. If I just showed you the shape of the bottle, you'd say, oh, I remember, glass Coke bottle, sure. It's not a word, it's the product's design, non-functional design, serving a trademark-like purpose. We call it trade dress, subcategory product design, or the Tiffany's boxes. It's product packaging. And it fits all the moves of trademark, more or less. Use it the same way, talk about the same kind of issues, and so on. But technically, it's trade dress, product packaging. All doing this big project of helping us figure out which product is which and from whom. I put that all together in one slide. So not just trademarks, there are all these related concepts that we're going to lump together more or less as we talk now, but all these related concepts of different versions of these helpers for communication. That takes me to the big puzzle, and really the last idea I want to plant in this introductory video. And the big puzzle for me is why trademark law is so nice. So far in the deck, I've told you that the federal system will basically take almost anything. And I think that's right. Words, smells, sounds, all sorts of good stuff. And we'll let you use all of those things to serve this communicative purpose. And that's the law. We do that. And the big puzzle for me has always been, why are we so nice? And here it is. There are many ways to identify source. That's what we've seen already. Smell, sound, color, shape, words, drawing, all sorts. There are many ways to identify source. And so I would have thought we'd want to discourage the use of source identifiers like colors, product design, product packaging, and so on. I would have thought we'd say to folks, don't use those. Use so many other options. You could make up a word, for example. You could make up a slogan, for example. I would have thought, given how many options businesses have, we would tell them, stay away from colors. Colors are messy, right? If you use a color, maybe that is going to mess up competition. You're a John Deere, you make tractors. You like to do them in green and yellow. Well, sure, maybe that could serve as a trademark, but you and I might say that anybody who makes farm equipment probably wants to use green, yellow, and brown, because those colors blend nicely with the backdrop of the farm. And so if we let you use a color or a design element of your product or a detail of the packaging, I would have thought we'd be worried that we might accidentally hamper competition. And so again, the big puzzle for me is, given there's so many ways to identify source, why don't we discourage some of these, like color, product design, and packaging? Both because consumers might not realize that those are supposed to be marks. If I have a weird word on my product, Exxon, Kodak, Nike, right away you as a consumer know, hey, that's telling me who made it. If I paint it green, you might not even realize that what I'm trying to do is signal to you something about where it comes from. Consumers might not even realize in these harder categories. And as I say, you might accidentally mess up competition. Maybe it's true that the shape of the glass Coke bottle is just decorative, in which case, fine, you could let them use it to identify source. But what if it's not? What if that shape has certain properties of how it stores the liquid, or how easy it is to hold, or something else? And what if we don't quite realize? And we let them use it as a trademark, and that does slow down competition. I've always been puzzled as to why trademark law is so nice. I want you to realize that trademark law is so nice. Trademark law does embrace all this stuff. But I've always wondered as to why. Why aren't we saying to these companies, choose words? Words are great. In most contexts, a made-up word will do this job for you beautifully. It could even be a suggestive word, but use words rather than this other stuff. And then sure, in some industries, for some products, for some services, maybe words won't work well. No place to put it maybe on the product. Fine, we'll let you do a couple other things. But I would have thought we would say to everybody, we're going to try to discourage the weird stuff. Colors, product shape, those things that, again, consumers might not recognize as trademarks, and maybe accidentally we might mess up competition. All right, we've gotten started. That's all I aim to do in this video. I want to introduce the idea that trademark law is primarily a federal set of rules. We saw the definition of a trademark, and we've gotten a little experience thinking about what can be a trademark. In the next video, we'll roll up our sleeves and do a bunch of the details.